So it's been a few months since I talked about the GPU market as a whole, and in the last video I was talking about my predictions for if the PC market's going to get better or worse, and that it was kind of starting to get into a really bad spot. And this time around we have new GPUs, and it's been a few months since then, and a lot has happened in the actual market itself. So I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on the current state of the market, and also if the new GPUs that are coming out, like the RTX 5060 and then the 9060 XT, are going to actually improve the market as a whole or make it even worse. So we're gonna go ahead and get straight into it. I honestly think after looking on Amazon and Newegg for the past few days, after the 5060 launch, this video is filmed pretty much the day you're actually seeing it, on the 6th. And I've noticed that the 5060 and even the 5060 Ti are somewhat close to MSRP. The 5060 8GB even being at MSRP at $299 on Newegg. It is actually pretty surprising to see MSRP GPUs, especially from NVIDIA, after, I want to say, months of not seeing them at all. And yeah, the Gigabyte WindForce RTX 5060 is in stock at $299 right now, which is honestly pretty shocking. And then you have your 5060 Ti 8GB at $379, which I think is pretty much MSRP, maybe a few dollars off. And then of course the 16 gigs goes up to like $400, I believe, or $429. So these are getting a little more available, and it's quite shocking comparative to the like the 9070 and the 9070 XT from AMD, as well as the 5070 and up from NVIDIA, because the second those hit the shelves, they were gone. They honestly didn't really hit the shelves because how fast they actually went out of stock. So it's really weird to see a few days into these graphics cards being in the market, them being in stock and ready to go and ready for you to buy, because it's definitely a complete different switch up from what they've normally been in terms of stock recently at launches. So this is a good thing to see, and if someone's looking for a more budget option on the market, these cards are here and available in stock, which is honestly a nice sight to see. It's kind of refreshing to see them. The only downside is the fact that the cards themselves they haven't really been well received, honestly, in terms of the actual community's feedback and just overall performance that we've seen from these cards. They're pretty much the exact same as the previous generation cards. I will say the 9060 XT, the 16 and 8 gig models, they've been somewhat well received, but they still haven't been like that well received overall. I think if you found one of these 9060 XTs, you picked one up at $389, that's pretty solid for a 16 gigabyte card that can do 1440p, but it is still a more expensive card, and you're gonna be spending at least $1,000 on the build itself at that point, unless you go super budget. And that's just really not considered budget anymore for the price of the graphics card. So it's just something to consider with the prices of everything right now. With both of these cards coming in stock and at somewhat close price to MSRP, like the 16 gig 9060 XT is about $30 over MSRP right now, or actually $40. So it's not really at MSRP. Even if with them being close to MSRP with the tariffs and everything going on right now, or potential tariffs coming up, I think that is still at least a good thing that you can actually buy these cards without them being insanely scalped, like on the used market, like the 5090, 5080, and 5070 Ti were. So, and then same thing with the 9070 XT. So I think in that sense, the cards being available, even if it's a few dollars more than the MSRP, is a good thing, and it's gonna open more people up to buying other parts and components. The only downside is, of course, you're gonna be spending a little more money than normal, and I still don't think we're gonna see much of an improvement in terms of the high-end cards, like anything at the 5080 and up, and the 9070 XT. Those cards, I don't even really, whenever I'm planning PC builds for our PC selling business, PC Bros, I don't even really look at them anymore, because I just know that the cost of them is going to be significantly above the MSRP that they're supposed to be sold at. So no 9070 XT is going to be below $800, and if they are, then it's out of stock. Actually, I found, yeah, so they're all over $800. So it's just kind of like the general consensus, and in that sense, at least the cards are available, but they're just not a good deal in terms of how much money you're spending to get the actual part itself. Whereas with these cards, they are still kind of above MSRP, but they are a little better in terms of swallowing that little jump in price to actually get into the PC gaming industry with how expensive these cards are right now. So I think the bottom line with everything right now is that the high-end market is pretty much going to kind of suffer, at least for a little bit longer. I hope that by the end of this year, we'll have like the main demand of cards kind of out of the way. And maybe even then, with these insanely high prices for these higher end cards, people might substitute down to a more budget card like the 5060 Ti or the 9060 XT, and then they might end up kind of taking away some of the demand away from the higher end cards, since the budget cards were released much later than the high end ones. So there could be that situation happening where some people are kind of settling and getting a lesser GPU just because it's what is in their budget right now. And that could in turn maybe lower the prices and the demand of the higher end cards like the XTs and the 5080s and stuff. But only time will really tell. I will say, even sometimes your mid-range cards like the 9070 and the 5070 do pop up quite frequently on your more popular websites that are somewhat in stock and are closer to MSRP than what they have been. So like the 9070 right now on the quick Google search, $649 for the Sapphire Pulse model. And yeah, that is about $100 over MSRP, but it's better than them being completely out of stock. And if you want a 1440p GPU, $649 is definitely about, I'd say about $50 more than what I'd personally want to spend. But it is still, an option if you want to get into a PC gaming experience right now, rather than having to wait a long time for things to even be able to be purchased. So it is getting better, and I do have hope that by the end of the year we should have a more stable market. I just think you're gonna have to be a little bit more okay with spending that extra $50 over the suggested price of retail for these graphics cards that are a little more desirable if you really want to get your hands on them, because unless you sit here and you're joining groups and you're joining repost sites and stuff like that for when things come back in stock and you are hunting for that MSRP, it's going to be hard to find an MSRP card right now, at least for the higher end cards. But I will say these lower end cards, if you do some waiting and like looking around for stock to go in and out, they are going to be a little more available and a little easier to get at the MSRP. So that's kind of where I think we're going to be going in the next few months. I do think that it's going to get better. I just don't think it's going to be a very fast process. And like the initial release of all the high-end cards, that was probably the worst of the worst, because you couldn't even get 40 series cards and you could only get the high-end 50 series cards, and you were just kind of in limbo. But at this point now, with pretty much everyone's cards coming out from all the lineups, you have AMD's budget cards, you have NVIDIA's budget cards out, and then you have the mid-range cards that have been out for a few months now. I think you're going to be able to see the ability to at least pick up the mid-range cards for a decent price now. And if you get really lucky somehow and you're like, looking and looking and looking, you might be able to find, those more higher-end cards at least somewhat close to MSRP. I still don't think MSRP is a good benchmark to try and hit for those higher-end cards, because it's just so unreasonable now, and with the market kind of being okay with these tariffs and stuff that are going to be coming into place, I think there is pretty much like a new in-stock MSRP for these cards, like the 9070 and 9070 XT. So just keep that in mind when you're looking around. But I do think things are going to get better from here, and only time will tell to see where we end up in a few more months. But at least on the bright side, you're able to buy PC parts, although sometimes it's a little more expensive than you'd hoped. It is available now, and that's definitely a step in the right direction. So that's pretty much where I'm going to leave things off at. If you have any thoughts or comments about the PC market with where things are at right now, or you want to give your own 2 cents or where you think the market will be in a few more months, let me know down in the comments below, because I am interested to hear what you guys think. But that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. So thanks for watching to the end if you all did, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.